I've had an elderly gentleman who wasn't really into these sort of cars. Did mention that Godzilla, that's interesting. Are you into the movies and all that sort of stuff? And I said, no, it's not the movie. It's actually what the car is known as. And he was, he was intrigued, and he asked more questions after that. So it's sort of an icebreaker as well, and they learn more about the car. Yeah, hi, my name is Peter Kristevsky, and this is my 2012 Nissan GTR. I've owned this car not very long at the moment. It's one of my latest purchases that I've made. I've been in the car scene, well, I've been interested in cars since I was probably a child, back in the days with all the Holdens and Ford rivalry through Bathurst 1000. And then the GTR came out in, I think it was 1989 when they dominated Bathurst, and ever since then I've been in love with the GTR. As you can see, the number plates on this are Godzilla, and Godzilla, a lot of people think it's a Japanese term for this car, but it's not actually Japanese. It's actually the Australians who named it Godzilla when none of the Holdens or Fords at the time could actually compete with this car at Bathurst, and it just stuck around the world. So everybody knows that it's Godzilla, and it's not Japanese. It's actually an Australian colloquial term. But now, a lot of people think you buy this car, you never drive it, but I tend to drive it wherever I possibly can. I do take it to shopping. It does have a boot. The kids fit in the back, and the whole family actually fits in the car. I wouldn't say very comfortably, but comfortable enough to actually drive around. We drive it on the school drop-offs. We take it to Surfers Paradise for a cruise. We go to the Cars and Coffee when we can. A couple of weekends ago was the first time we've been to one on the Gold Coast. Due to COVID restrictions, we haven't been able to do any car things that we enjoy. We just drive it to the mountain and back, or we drive it to the local beach and back, which is, it's fun, but it's obviously not as fun as seeing everybody else's cars out there. These Cars and Coffee meets and all the other meets that we have are great for that sort of stuff. So in the beginning, when I first got my license, I bought a Holden, had a Holden VN, like most other Aussie kids back then. The VN was a big thing for us, and then as I got older, I sort of realised I fell in love with this, with the Skylines, with the R32 and R33. I bought an R33 GTST back then. That was still pretty expensive, and when you're on your P plates, you couldn't really afford anything sort of better than that. I would have loved to get a GTR back then, but obviously, money was an issue. Also, getting insurance was an issue. Just running them wasn't easy back in the 90s. And then I've moved on from the GTST to an R32 GTR. I had that for a little while. Unfortunately, that was going to be my build, and I was going to keep that. It was a big plan that I had. Unfortunately, that fell through, and I sold the car at a loss at the time, which is, looking at it now, is a little bit silly with the prices that have sort of crept up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And since then I've just been looking for the past few years at the 35s. I always wanted to get a 35 since they came out, and it was hard to get the right one. It was hard to get it for the right price. You know, you had the first models that came out in 08, 09, had quite a few issues. Obviously it was the first series of the GTR, and a lot of people found gearbox problems, and I sort of didn't want to get into that trouble. So I went to the next iteration of the GTR, which was the 2011, late 2011, 2012, 2013, which this is. And it's sort of if you go on to the next model, which is the 2014 up, you don't really get much more for your money. It's got all the same changes that they made to actually make them safer, a lot more reliable, and it's got what I wanted, 400 kilowatts plus was the aim. I didn't want to go any lower than that, and I'm happy with this car at the moment. How long I keep it is another question. Normal driving, I have it sitting in the comfort mode, and typically the gear changes are in our sports mode. It just makes it a little bit more fun to drive, but at the same time comfortable. One thing I could say is it does attract a lot of attention, whether positive or negative. Mostly positive, I would say. I think a lot of people respect the car. They don't really have anything negative against it. They just want to see it. They want to be up close. A lot of people want to take photos of it, and you know, that's everywhere you go. You get some sort of a recognition where there's a lot of people who love these cars, a lot of fans. They probably wouldn't go out and buy it, even though they could afford it. It's not something that you probably buy because you can't make as much use unless you actually went to these events. The day that I bought it, I went to the service station to get fuel, and that was would have been the first few minutes of ownership. Somebody was filming me leaving the service station because they were excited about the car. You know, they stopped, they asked questions, they just wanted to know more about them. They've never seen them up close, and I think that's the most important thing about this car. It's very rare. I enjoy the car, I love the car. It's really for myself, not really anybody else, and I think seeing other people enjoying it as well is great. They can appreciate what it's capable of and what Nissan has done to develop these cars. And as you can see, I've got the plates Godzilla on the car, which also came with the car. It was a no-brainer when the gentleman offered to leave the plates on there. They're very hard to get. There's not many ways you can spell Godzilla on a license plate, and I'm very happy with what we got here. And yeah, it just suits the car. Now, you will get people, I've had an elderly gentleman who wasn't really into these sort of cars, did mention that, Godzilla, that's interesting. Are you into the movies and all that sort of stuff? And I said, no. It's not the movie, it's actually what the car is known as. And he was intrigued, and he asked more questions after that. So it's sort of an icebreaker as well, and they learn more about the car. And I always get asked by a lot of people how I still have my license, or do I still have my license driving this car? And honestly, I can say I have. I've never had a speeding fine. I never done anything silly. I think I'm mature enough now to actually own one of these cars. I do feel that anybody younger quite potentially will find it hard to keep the license. This car doesn't like to go slow. I don't think it has a slow mode. We do have comfort mode, which you can set obviously in the car for the suspension and even the gearing. It makes it a little bit more tame, you could call it, but it does not enjoy being driven slowly, I suppose is the word. It's not hard to keep to the speed limit, but it is tempting to go above the speed limit, let's just say, because that's pretty much when it starts its work. When it gets past 60 is when you really hear the engine and you actually release the power. So no, I haven't lost any points. I still have my license for anybody that wants to know, and I'm pretty on the streets. I'm pretty safe. I do plan to take it to the track, potentially in the near future, just to see what it can do in a safe environment. Other than that, I still have my license.